Cik Ramlah really want to hear from you. Yes. Over to you, Cik Ramlah.
Yes. Good evening, teachers.
Good evening.
And my children who have grown with the families of their own. Now, on behalf of the mission, IJ Mission, I would like to thank all the teachers who were with me throughout my time in Pahat Convent. And I'm sure some of you don't know much about the history of the school. Would you like to hear it?
Yes!
I hope you won't be bored by this, yes?
No. I like street. We must pass this street now.
In the 50s, the convents were known as aided schools, which means to say that the convents all over the country were aided by the government, but the buildings were built by the mission. And it happened that Batu Pahat Convent was not an aided school then, in 55. So I just, at that time, I've just returned from my training, and the Reverend Mother was looking for a qualified teacher to take over Batu Pahat Convent. And as you know, Batu Pahat Convent had no building of its own. It was being built. And again, allow me here to thank the late Mr. Tan Sui Ho's family, who donated the land to the convent. And before this, before the building was completed, the school was at the Tan Sui Ho premises. And they lent us 2 garages and 1 storeroom. And that's where I came in, because my classroom was near Jalan Kluang, just beside the road, and it was a storeroom. And the other 2 classes were in the garage, 2 garages belonging to Tan Sui Ho's family. And I came to Batu Pahat not because I was asked to, but I volunteered. Because without a qualified teacher, the school would never be aided by the government. Which means to say, the mission had to pay the teachers. And as you know, the mission had not enough money for that, because they had to build the school. And here again, I take this opportunity to those who had helped, because among them was the late Mr. Chu Seng Leong, because he became the leader of the group, which went begging for donation. And we had to beg from door to door, especially in town, in Batu Pahat town. And sometimes it was amusing, because those who did not want to give us donation, they would say, ini hari tauke tak ada. So we got nothing. And again, I would like to thank all the Batu Pahat, the public particularly, who helped us in many ways. Especially the parents of the children who attended the convent at that time. And actually, I volunteered to come to Batu Pahat because the mission said that there was nobody wanting to come to Batu Pahat. And I was then in Muar Convent. So I promised Reverend Mother Margaret Mary, I will go to Batu Pahat, but only for a year. But in the end, I stayed on, and I even told her that I would go back to Muar Convent and let someone else be in Batu Pahat. But in the end, I stayed back for 28 years. Now, when I first came to Batu Pahat, I knew nobody, and I had no place to stay. There was no room, there was no house, but I was put at the rest house, the old rest house. And during the 6 months when the school was being built, I can tell you now that I had only 1 meal a day for 6 months. For a reason, because those days there were no warongs, right? In the 50s. There was no place to eat except in town. But it was too far for us to go to town. And then Reverend Mother arranged for 2 of us to stay in one of the bungalows at Jalan Sulit. And I tell you, that bungalow was haunted. Talking about ghosts, you ask Bitin. Bitin would know a lot about it. And I was there for a few months. And as I say, my meal was sometimes only cream crackers because I did not want to go to town. It was too far, we had no transport. And as I say, Jacob's cream crackers should award me, I think, you know. And there was I at this bungalow. And after that, Reverend Mother arranged for the 2 of us to stay with at the headmistress' house in the wait a minute, I'm mixing up with Johor Bahru and TIGS headmistress, Mrs. Poi. So there, another teacher and I stayed in one of the rooms at Mrs. Poi's house. And I thank Mrs. Poi for giving us that opportunity. But what happened was, by that time, the building was already up. And so I told this friend, and she was a temporary teacher, Esther, late Esther. I said, Esther, if you are ready to go to live with me in one of the classrooms, I wouldn't mind going into this. Let's live in the school, because we had water, but there was no light there. And so we moved to one of the classrooms. And I'm sure you know where the classroom is. You know? Somewhere near the steps. I'm talking about, when I say first block, that means the first block that's nearer the road, right? So there's a staircase. Remember that? Yes. And that classroom first classroom was my bedroom. And my furniture was old desks and chairs. And would you believe it, at the opening of that, on the eve of the opening, and the building was to be opened by late Sultan Ismail. He was then the Mahkota of Johor. My friend Esther was a big person, you know, and we were practicing the children to do Scottish dancing. So I had the record with me. And on the eve of the opening, Esther stepped on the record. So what did we do? Both of us cried. Because the opening was supposed to be at 4 o'clock the next day. So what were we going to do? And there again, a good Samaritan came over and I asked him, one of the parents, do you think you can get a record that with the same tempo as long as it's Scottish dancing? So he said, I'll try. And knowing Batu Pahat, you know, some of the people in Batu Pahat, they have these records. Didn't he come that evening? So he came over. We took the record and told the children, tomorrow morning you come and practice. We will give you lunch. We'll make you rest until the opening at 4 o'clock. And we practiced them from morning until lunchtime, gave them lunch, make them sleep, practice again until the time came at 4 o'clock to perform. And do you know at that time how many children I had? I had only 68 children. And they performed well, and there were other items as well, and that went off smoothly. So that particular night, this is where the ghosts are. You like ghost stories? That particular night, when we were about the nuns, Malacca nuns came over because of the opening. So quite a number of people were there. But at about midnight, my room, my bed was near the passageway, you know, leading to the children's toilet. So I heard the clang of sound of a chain, you know, like someone dragging a group of people up the steps, past my bedroom, straight to the swing door where the children's toilet was. And so I did not want to tell Esther, my friend, about it. I thought, be quiet because nobody will, will believe. I said, okay. After some time, a few minutes later, she woke me up. She said, Ron, did you hear that? I said, what did you hear? And she told me the same thing, what I heard, you see. So what we did was, we dragged some tables near the wall. I climbed up, I put my head, you know the opening that we have there? It was just nice for my head. I looked around and the place was calm. It was a moonlight night, not even a breeze. So we looked at the children's toilet door. The swing door was still swinging. You remember the swing door? And after that, it went off quietly. And that was the first ghost story. But I did not tell even the nuns who were there until later. In fact, when I was in PD, I told Sister Anna about it, you know. They were all there, but they did not know what was happening. And then every holiday, say beginning of the holidays, no, not beginning, end of the term, I could hear people dragging chairs and tables below, where there were empty classrooms there. And this happened every end of the term. Like as if they are shifting, they were shifting somewhere, going back about lost souls. And I suppose they were so angry with us, at the fact that we had occupied their place, perhaps, I call it the lost souls. And do you know that I heard from Mr. Seng Leong, he said there were so many killings going on during the Japanese occupation, and they buried them alive, many were buried alive. And that, I believe, one of the reasons. And it did not end there, Things kept on happening in school. We have got square pillars, right? Very sharp, right? Suddenly, some girls would walk right into this, and there was a cut, someone had a cut across the forehead. That was one accident. And at that time, I had no phone, no car, nobody to help me to take the children. Again, some good Samaritans did help me. And they took the child to the hospital. And another time, I was teaching in standard 5, I think, the class upstairs. And the school being new, they had lots of big pictures, this holy pictures right on the walls. You remember that?
Yes.
And you see, there was no reason why it happened, because everything was new. The school was new, and the strings holding the pictures were new. But as I was taking group work, I was with the other group. Some children were near near the blackboard there, on the floor. They were reading, and I was on the other side of it. Suddenly, that picture fell. And that picture fell on this girl's head. And suddenly I saw blood oozing, the head. And it's very difficult to find the cuts, because it's in between your hair. And this particular girl is a Eurasian. Her name is Adrian. And she is that talkative type, couldn't stop. As soon as she got it onto her head, when the thing fell onto her head, she said, Paramla. Not Paramla, they called me Cik Ramlah. Cik Ramlah. I don't want to go to hospital. I don't want stitches. Don't stitch me, She was so talkative. So I said, Adrian, sit down. I said, I held her in my arms. I said, okay, we'll see what we can do. There again, I had to get help. And normally, good Samaritans would come along, as I say, throughout my years in Batu Pahat, there were some good people. So we took her to hospital. As soon as we arrived at the hospital, she said, I don't want stitches. Cik Ramlah, I don't want stitches. Don't stitch me, she said. I said, it's all right, Adrian. In the meantime, in the hospital, they were trying to cut her hair and doing all the things, stitched her and all that sort of thing. And then I had to inform the parents. And that too, I had some people to do it, because I had no means of going to the parents, no telephone. The school had no telephone, no fencing when I was there. No fencing, no telephone, no transport, nothing. We were actually without anything at all. That's how we started the school. And then we had no helper. I had no gardener. I had no clerk. Because I had only 68 children. I wasn't entitled to any of the, entitled to have any helper at all in the school until later. when the enrollment improved. But with all that, I feel that my aim was just to educate the children, because some of them were from the farms and all that, So